Here we are, the start of the 2024-2025 college basketball season. Rutgers men's basketball tipping off on Wednesday, November 6th at home, 6 p.m. at Jersey Mike's Arena. I do that as a formality, but it is the RAC as we know it, and hosting Wagner to kick off the most anticipated season in program modern history. I say that it could be the most ever, but just trying to kind of keep everyone happy there. And I think that's pretty much indisputable in terms of all time. Hard to say. But I had a full slate of preview episodes last week. I had Joe Jackson from Feed the Post on to do kind of comprehensive Big Ten preview. He does some great video breakdowns and did so of Rutgers St. John's in that exhibition game. So covered that as well. That was a fun episode. I also did a extensive breakdown on the 22-0 run in that exhibition against St. John's. If you haven't seen that, check it out. I thought there were some very intriguing, promising takeaways from that game, which we'll go into a little bit here as well. In this episode, then I had PJ Hayes, San Diego transfer, interview last week, and then also my annual preseason preview with Jerry Carino. Always a blast talking to Jerry. And this episode coming to you before the season and the week of the season beginning, I'm going to do some, I've hinted at this, I'm going to do player projections, projecting minutes and some stat lines for the main player rotation. And then also get into kind of some questions and things, questions/points/areas I think this team can kind of set apart and kind of elevate them or help determine their floor as well. And then give a season prediction projection record-wise and just really what I hope out of this team. It's going to be quite the ride. I hope Rutgers fans are ready for it. I don't know if I'm ready for it. I don't know if we'll ever be ready for it, but it's here and it's happening. I know some fans are a little, skittish after the way football has started, but I will say, and I've seen a lot of comments about people saying, stop being optimistic about Rutgers basketball. Look, people are trendy with Rutgers football. Listen, one has nothing to do with the other. Football has its own issues because of its own issues. If basketball underachieves per se or doesn't achieve as much as people hope, it's not going to be because of bad luck or some curse or anything. It's going to be because of a lack of efficiency somewhere, an inability to fix mistakes in one area. It's going to have to do with execution, which is what's happening with football. So please don't tie one to the other. They're completely different programs, sports. I wish football was, of course, having a much better season than they are, but has anything to do with the fact that basketball is going to underachieve also. Two different things here. Maybe I'm old man ranting here, but let's get into it. Let's talk about player projections. Now, this is giving plenty of material to give me crap throughout the season. This is obviously, I've looked at some metrics. I've looked at some analytics. I've kind of just based on what I've saw in the couple practices I've seen, what I think, based on the exhibition we saw and just where the rotation could shake out. I think the biggest takeaway is this team can look very different game to game in terms of how much the rotation, how players are utilized, minutes. It's going to be fascinating to watch, and it's going to come down to Steve Pikiell making the right decisions in the right moments. Obviously, the Big Ten is as well coached a league as there is, and there's going to be a lot of adjustments to make, in-game adjustments throughout the season, and how teams are preparing for certain players. It's going to be really interesting to see. So in terms of where I kind of am guessing these averages, that doesn't mean that these players' stat lines are going to be anywhere close to that game to game. You can see, I could see very much the case where I think, and that's my biggest kind of first general point on this team, is the accountability on the court for this team is going to be very high because the competition is so steep, because players are going to be pushing players for minutes. And if you come out and you're not ready to play and you play a bad first 3-4 minutes, there is a chance on this team that you don't get back on the floor the rest of the game. And I think that type of built-in competitiveness / kind of self-accountability from the players, because Steve Pikiell has so many options. I mean, look at the backcourt. Obviously, Dylan Harper, he's going to get bulk of the production minutes, usage, all that. But then with Jeremiah Williams, Tyson Acuff, Jordan Durkak, and Jermichael Davis, I mean, minutes are going to be fascinating to watch amongst that foursome, and how they kind of duke it out. And I think, again, you're going to see different impacts in different games from all of them. And then, just in terms of how they shake out the rotation at the five, the interior, defensively, it's going to be fascinating to watch. So I think this could fluctuate quite a bit, but these are kind of my best guesses for the season. I do want to kind of start with a caveat in terms of the starters for November. I think it's very much going to be what you see in St. John's with Emmanuel Ogbole is going to get that start at the five for, I think, the beginning of the season. Can he hold on to it? Remains to be seen. I think Ace will be at the four. You'll have, and then probably a three-guard backcourt with Jeremiah Williams, Jermichael Davis, and Dylan Harper. Now, obviously, injuries is the great variable throughout the season in terms of minutes and rotations and starters and all that. But I think that starting lineup is pretty much where Rutgers will start. And the overall theme of this team, I think, is how much better can they be in February and March than they were in November and early December. And we won't truly have a gauge of this team until Feast Week in late November. But that's when we'll get a real idea for what the rotation is going to look like, and how they're producing and how this team is gelling, right? So that's going to be fascinating to watch. But let's just kind of go down the line here. And we'll start let's just start with the backcourt. Dylan, listen, he's going to play 30-plus minutes a game. I'm going to guesstimate 32. There's going to be games he plays more. There's probably going to be a few games he plays less. I think staying out of foul trouble, obviously, is something he's going to have to learn. He did get into foul trouble a little bit against St. John's, had 4 fouls. But my biggest kind of points for him is, can he become the facilitator that this team needs him to be? Can he be that high assist guy? Now, of course, he's needs to be the clutch playmaker for them as well. And I think that's where you'll see the ball in his hands quite a bit, especially in the second half, down the stretch. Can he break down opposing defenses off the bounce? I think, in terms of his ability to work off screens, that's going to be a huge advantage for him with his size and his decision-making in terms of, does he take it himself to the rim? Does he pull up mid-range in the paint? Does he find open teammates? Having shooters around him is going to be essential here. So I think his ability as a facilitator is going to help impact the ceiling. His shot-making ability, of course, and then also his perimeter defense. Can he be disruptive? He had a great steal against St. John's at one point. His footwork, his discipline on defense in the second half lacked, and he got a little lazy with some fouls. But his potential is really high, and if he could be all bought in defensively, and he can start to kind of ascend as a defender in Steve Pikiel's defensive system, his sky's the limit. And I just think that he is ultimately the most ready of the two between him and Ace Bailey in terms of making an immediate impact. I think he'd be one of the best point guards in the country. I think he'd be the best player in the Big Ten. Stats-wise, I think he's probably going to average around 14, 15. I'm going to say 15 points, 5 assists, 4 to 5 rebounds. Let's just say 15, 5 and 5. Let's go for it. I think he's going to be a very good rebounder for his size. Rutgers is going to need him to rebound. I think he can get that 5 assist mark. Only one player in the last 40 years, other than Brian Ellerby, since the mid-'80s, Brian Ellerby, and then Paul Mulcahy a few years ago. I think Dylan Harper ultimately can be, and I really think he's going to be right around that 5 assist mark all year. And then I think he'll average a steal and a block. So 15, 5, 5, 101. Is that an all Big Ten first team mark? I mean, I think obviously the success of this team depends on it. I think obviously, can he shoot 35% plus from 3? Can he be a 75 to 80% free throw shooter? Can he shoot, over 50% from 2? All those things I think he can do. I think I made a video on him a long time ago about his ability to kind of create contact at the rim. Can he finish at the rim and get a lot of and ones? But his sky's the limit. And I just think he's obviously, impacts his team in so many ways. And that's where I see him. And then other than that, I mean, in terms of Jordan Durkak, Tyson Acuff, Jermichael Davis, and Jeremiah Williams. I think Jeremiah Williams, you would expect to play the most minutes. I was all over the place with his minutes. I think he could play as, anywhere mid-20s, right? I think he could go as high as 28 minutes a game average-wise. I think it could be as low as 23, 24 minutes. I think it's somewhere, 24, 25 mark, simply because of the other options you have around him. And we saw J. Will got in foul trouble against St. John's. They were able to plug holes with Durkak. And JaMychal Davis. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think for him, his ability in the offense in terms of backdoor cuts and to be able to slash to the rim off the ball, Dylan Harper being able to find him. I think I've seen that in at times this offseason, preseason. That will be something I think he can be really, really effective at. And also just in terms of catching the ball on the perimeter, ball fake, get to the paint, pull up mid-range. He was really good at elevating his shot in mid-range last year. His first step off the bounce, I think a ball fake on the perimeter and being able to drive. But again, I think the key for Rutgers to be able to be efficient from 2-point range is huge. But I think those are two ways he's going to be able to be very effective in this offense. And listen, you can't expect him to all of a sudden become a super efficient 3-point shooter, but he's got to be able to knock down some open threes. I think that will garner him more minutes. If he could be over that 30% mark, I think that's honestly for his career marks, that would be acceptable. And I think, again, his ability to move without the ball, he's going to have the ball in his hands at points. I think it only makes this offense more effective if Harper can play off the ball at times. But J. Will, can he, we know he's a leader, but can he find his kind of rhythm offensively, playing off of Dylan more times than not? That's going to be key, of course. But overall, I think he's going to average anywhere, let's say 8 to 10 points, 2 to 3 assists, 3 to 4 rebounds, 1 to 2 steals. That would be, I think, an efficient output for him this year. And then I really think Durkak, honestly, I omit this. I think he's going to play more minutes than I thought at first going into the offseason. I thought maybe he'd be the fifth guard. And now, just in terms of seeing him in practice, how he fits into the Steve Pikiell style defensively, he's got size. He's fearless. I think, his shot selection is going to be really important to watch for. I think with J-Mike as well, which we'll get to. But in terms of Durkak, he was 1 of 7 from the floor against St. John's. His ability to be a facilitator, he had a high assist rate at Merrimack, who was player of the year. He also had a high turnover rate. So can he be more efficient with the ball in his hands, finding open teammates, creating scoring chances for them, less of a scorer, more of a facilitator, more of an on-ball defender, a disruptor, a Swiss Army knife type player, a good rebounder for his size. These are all things that I think will dictate how much he's going to play. And when he does penetrate, can he get to the rim and finish or get to the foul line? That's going to be key for him. Overall, I think he, 20 minutes, but I think less scoring, 5 to 6 points, 3 to 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 to 2 steals. That's kind of how I see Durkak. In terms of J-Mike, I think I know Pikiell's probably going to start him. JaMychal Davis is a solid player. I think one area he's got to get better at is in terms of being efficient offensively. He's the smallest guy in the team at 6'2", and we saw 3 possessions in a row against St. John's. He got stuffed going to the rim. He's got to be able to create that pull-up and either dish to an open teammate or be able to hit that mid-range game, 10-foot, 12-foot, whatever, jump stop, knock it down. I think that's really where his game can elevate offensively. In terms of being able to not go all the way and just, not really be able to finish very efficiently. He had a very low finish rate at the rim last year. And then his assist rate, for a good part of last season, he was had a very high assist rate, had a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio for a while, then kind of went downhill in that regard throughout the season. Tried to do too much, I think, which is understandable in the situation last year. And that's the thing. If he can accept his role and understand that, with the playmakers around him, with the offensive talent around him, he could be really effective getting people the ball. So I think his ability to do that, he really could be anywhere from 16 to maybe 22 minutes. I think it's going to be on the lower end simply because of all the other options that Pikiell has as disposal. A lot of this is going to be matchup based. And I think size-wise, in terms of Rutgers, having such big guards, aside from J-Mike, gives them ability to give some matchup problems, especially in Big Ten play. But I think J-Mike, of course, is going to be a vital member of the rotation. And I see him about, anywhere from, I say 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 to 2 steals. And I think, can he hit open threes as well? That's a big question mark for a lot of guys on this team. He looked better in the preseason in terms of being able to hit threes. If he can shoot over 30% clip, that's going to be really important for him too. He also struggled from the foul line last year. So if he can all of a sudden become over a 70% free throw shooter, he's going to be in the game more down the stretch. And then the X factor for me, Tyson Acuff, was, I think, destined for a big role on this team. Got hurt, had the foot injury, was out over 3 months, has looked rusty, understandably so. Had one quick 3-minute run against St. John's, had a bad air ball. But he is a key here. I think if he can be their third to fourth scorer, whether that's off the bench, whether it's ultimately become a starter, if he can average 8 to 10 points a game, if he could be a much more efficient offensive player. He had a high usage rate at Eastern Michigan. So he took a lot of, he was forced into a lot of shots. His shot selection, if he can be within the flow of the offense and give this team instant offense when he's in the game, that's going to be a ceiling elevating type impact from Acuff. In terms of question marks, consistent scoring for this team as a third, fourth scorer, doing so within the flow of the offense. And then his free throw rate, he's a really good free throw shooter. He was good at getting to the rim and getting fouled. Can he do that at a Big Ten level? Because that would really be huge for this team. And then defensively, how well can he hold up? I think, he's athletic enough. Again, buying into the Steve Peichel defense is going to be huge here. But just in terms of guard play, Harper, J. Will, J. Mike, Durkak, and Acuff, you have a lot of options there. You have 5 guys that I think all are going to contribute in this rotation. And the averages and, the production night to night is going to vary. But I think those averages are relatively reasonable. None of them are, I think, expect or over expectations or really high expectations for them. But I think it's doable. And I think if they can all produce at that level, this is going to be a good team. And all in all, stats aside, pressure defensively from this perimeter, their ability to take care of the basketball in key situations, to not panic, to keep their poise. Guard play is so important in college basketball. And I think Rutgers has a better backcourt than they're getting credit for. It's more than just Dylan Harper. It's how cohesive are they together on the floor? How do they gel together? How do they move the ball within this offense? Transition-wise, how much can they push the pace? It's going to be fascinating to watch. Super excited to see it. And then let's go to the 5. Fascinating to see what's going to happen there. I think, Agbole is going to be the starter. I don't have high hopes for him, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just think, Peichel's done this in past rotations where he's kind of the starting 5, but then he's not on the end of the floor games. Now, again, his ability to defend and rebound is everything. He's not going to be asked to do a lot offensively. If he can defend and rebound at a competent level, stay out of foul trouble, and be a reasonable rim defender, he's going to be on the court more than I maybe am projecting right now. I think it's anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. I think modest projections, 2 points, 4 rebounds, a block a game. In terms of offense, it's going to be on putbacks and offensive rebounds and dunks off of, feeds from his teammates where he's open. Can he rim run? Can he rim run in transition? We saw him do it once against St. John's. That was super encouraging. He had a great outlet pass to Ace for open 3 against St. John's as well. Those are 2 things right there. If he can rim run and he can have kickouts on the perimeter for open teammates, he's going to be on the court because those are 2 things that Rutgers has struggled with from their bigs in the past. And then just in terms of also his outlet passes in transition off of defensive rebounds, how effective can he be in terms of helping to get Rutgers out on the break? Is identifying where the ball handlers are. Luckily for him, there's a lot of ball handlers with that backcourt. They can all handle the ball. And then just in terms of consistency on the glass, he's got to show up night after night. They need him. I mean, maybe 4 rebounds in 12 minutes is low. Maybe he's going to play closer to 20 minutes. If that's the case, he's got to average, I think 6+ rebounds. Rutgers is going to need everybody, all hands on deck on the glass. Then in terms of Lathan Somerville, this is where I see Rutgers. Are they a better team from November to February, March? If they are, I would bet on the fact that Lathan Somerville is more of a factor in February and March and develops offensively. He's far ahead of Agbole. Defensively, he's not. That's going to be where it comes down to. Just in terms of ability to bang with the bigs, be able to rebound, defend, his footwork, his anticipation, his understanding of the defensive rotations, being able to stay out of foul trouble. All those things are going to be huge for him. But he's got a high ceiling. He can spread the floor much more so than Abole. You can't expect him to shoot a lot from the perimeter this year. But listen, if he can hit one from mid-range, he can shoot threes. If he can hit one down in a game, that's going to help open up the floor for the offense for sure. But his ability to stay on the floor is going to be defensive rebounding. And again, the game's going to come to him offensively in terms of dump-offs on drives and offensive glass. If he can be aggressive and effective off the glass offensively and get putbacks there, he's going to, fight for more minutes as well. And then how did they deal with it? And so I projected him 12 to 15 minutes. I kind of feel like him and Agbole are even right now. Mix and match. We'll see. And then you got to expect Martini and or Ace to pick up those minutes on the 4 or 5. Aside from there, in terms of Martini, I think anywhere from 18 to 22 minutes in terms of his average minutes. I think he could average about 7 points a game, 2 assists, 4 to 5 rebounds. His ability to hit open threes, his ability to hang defensively in the interior and to rebound. Those are going to be big question marks. His leadership is unquestioned. His fight, his edge that he brings to this team. I just see him on the floor down the stretch of games. I think his ability to shoot threes is going to be huge for this team. And he's just going to be a great role player. And he said, in my interview with him in the preseason, talking about, whether he has 3 shots a game or whatever it is, he just wants to win. And I think that is a variable with this team as well. All the 4 transfers that are here bought in to what they were coming into, the situation they were coming into. They all wanted to play with Ace and Dylan. They all knew they were going to take a backseat to them in terms of roles. And they're here, their last season eligibility to win. Dirk X got 2, but still, Martini, PJ Hayes, we'll talk about in a minute, obviously Tyson Acuff, in their last years of eligibility, they want to win. And that's why I have confidence in the chemistry of this team, in the roles of this team working itself out. Now, it might take a while, but I really think that's why I'm so high on this team in February and March, really being able to get on a roll and make a run, because I think things could really start to gel at that point. Obviously, the sooner the better. You really need to start gelling in January. And, listen, it could start even sooner than that. I think momentum is going to be so key to this season. But in terms of, let's see, moving on, we talked about everyone but Ace at this point. And in terms of Ace, listen, he's the most talented player and most athletic player Rutgers has, maybe ever had. No slight to the 76 team, but we'll see just in terms of how much he can fulfill his potential. Obviously, shot selection is huge for him. He can make any shot on the floor, which is both a blessing and a curse. His ability to rein it in, his ability to get high percentage looks. I think a lot of that's going to come from Dylan Harper. That's why I'm high on Dylan Harper, being at a 5 assists per game average, because I think he can really, when him and Ace start to click, they're going to play a lot of a 2-man game, I think. Dylan going off screens off of Ace being able to roll, Ace being able to kind of drop back behind the perimeter, hit threes off of the screens. They're going to be able to do a lot of things together. And I think that the more that they could set Ace up versus Ace having to create off the dribble himself is really going to help him be a more efficient player. I also think in terms of his interior defense, you saw in the St. John's scrimmage, he did kind of audition as a rim defender, left his who he was defending kind of out in the corner. Can't do that against everybody. He's going to be a work in progress defensively, but his potential is really high as a shot blocker, as a rim defender, as a rebounder. Overall, he's going to be a big-time scorer for this team, no doubt. I think, I'm going to go with 18 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and a steal in 32 to 34 minutes a game. I think that's realistic. I think it honestly could be more. I think obviously it could be less. But I think that's where he's going to kind of shake out. It's how efficient can him and Dylan be. So just in terms of overall, that puts this team around 77 to 80 points a game. That is pretty high. That would be prolific for Steve Pikiell's offense, for Rutgers in general. About 34 to 35 rebounds, 20 to 21 assists. So, that's not a huge rebounding team. But again, if they can be an efficient shooting team, if they can shoot over 50% from 2, I think they could do about 51, 52%. I really do. If they can shoot around 35% from 3, that's above average. They could shoot, I think they could shoot 73% from foul line, maybe even a little bit better. No team is, it's been decades, early 70s since they shot over 70% from the foul line. So this team, I think offensively, much better shooting team, but how efficient can they be as shooters? How well will they finish at the rim? Will they shoot over 60% on layups and dunks? Can they, shoot over 50% from 2-point range overall? Can they shoot 35% or better from 3-point line? Let's get into some questions in terms of this team. Just in terms of Ace and Dylan, how often can they be the two best players on the floor? That is going to really dictate a lot. Obviously, the role players are going to be extremely important in all this. But if Ace and Dylan are the two best players on the floor, more times than not, Rutgers is going to win more times than not. Now, what happens when one of them has a bad game, both of them have a bad game? That's why I think part of the roller coaster projections for this team, anywhere from 7th to 5th, 15th in the Big Ten by most, national outlets. They were picked 7th, in the Big Ten media poll. People don't know what to expect from this team. Two freshmen, people are nervous about it, but these are not your two ordinary freshmen. And I just think their ability to play within the team concept offensively, can they score within the flow of the offense? It can't be, I go now to the rim, it's my turn to shoot, it's your turn to shoot. That can't happen. The ball can't stick in their hands only. They need teammates to help them by hitting open shots. That's key, of course. Spacing on the floor is going to be essential. But I think if these two guys can learn how to win down the stretch in games, if they can start to do the little things, if they can show out defensively at times and be at a competent level baseline defensively with their size, with their Dylan's IQ, Ace's athleticism. How much is this team going to press full court, 3/4 court? How much are they going to trap 3/4 court, half court? I really think, there's questions about rim defense, right? Well, what's the best rim defense when you have questions about rim defense? Not letting your opponent get to the rim. And that's where I think the perimeter defense of this team, the pressure they can create, the size advantage they have on the perimeter with their guards and their wings, Peichel as a defensive schemer. This team is they've always been really good at trying to take out what the opponent does best. I think they can really create a helter-skelter environment. It's going to be up to Dylan and Ace to kind of keep their composure and be able to finish off of defensive turnovers. How much can this team run in transition? I've talked about the natural accountability night to night, everyone being ready to play, because if you're not going to be out on the court as much as you want in that game. That is going to be just a huge factor for this team that Rutgers hasn't had pretty much ever in the Steve Peichel era. I've talked about before with the lineups you used to have, with Gio, Ron, Caleb, you kind of roll the ball out and they're going to play 30, 35 minutes a game. Very different team, very different approach. You have a lot of one-year players in this program, and that's it. I think Steve Peichel can use that to his advantage in terms of divvying up minutes, lineup decisions. Obviously, foul trouble and matchups are all going to dictate all of that. But picking the hot hand, who's going to show up in that first half? Will it translate to the second half? How long do guys get runs if they're not hitting shots, if they're not contributing? That's the other thing. If you're off on your shot that night, but are you doing the little things? Are you doing things that Jordan Durkat can do, that Zach Martini can do? That's why those guys, I think, will be on the upper half of minutes-wise average, because they can do a lot of those little things, and they have size on the perimeter to offer Rutgers. The 5-man's going to be a mix and match, but rebounding is going to be all hands on deck all season. I think their guards can rebound pretty well. Big Ten has a lot of 2-man front courts, 2 big men in the front court. Indiana, Michigan, Purdue could be really big inside, as always. There's a lot of teams that can give you a lot of different looks. How can Rutgers hold up inside against some of those teams? We saw them struggle against St. John's against a very good big and Zuby Ejiofor. So I think this is going to be obviously a huge storyline for this team. But again, things like pressing, things like half-court traps, getting offenses to start high, later in the shot clock to get into their sets, forcing turnovers, keeping them having them start their offense farther away from the rim, really getting teams to force shots, contested shots out of the flow of their offense, getting teams to go ISO because the shot clock's running out. I think those are all things that they could do defensively. I think when we talk about this team being better in February and March versus November, December, I think it's the defensive end is where we'll really see the progress. In terms of scoring off a transition, obviously you have to rebound to get into transition. So they're going to have to defensive rebound. Obviously, putbacks, offensive rebounds would be huge, but you can't allow opponents to have a huge advantage on you on the offensive glass. And then, in terms of their half-court offense, I think you're going to see a lot of screening action, but how they share the ball. Their assist rate was not good as a team against St. John's. Can they have a close to 50% assist rate? Again, a lot of that's going to be dictated by Dylan Harper, but their guards overall. I mean, Jordan Durkak, high assist rate guy. Can JaMychal Davis, can Jeremiah Williams, can they be high assist rate guys too? Tyson Acuff's a scorer. He came to score. That's what he does best. Of course, if he can find open teammates and make the right pass when it's there, he needs to. But I think the backcourt, in terms of making sure that this team gets into their offense, moves the ball around. Again, a lot of screening action with Ace and Dylan, getting them good looks. I think getting Hayes, who we haven't talked about. Oh, I missed Hayes. Oh, my goodness. I missed Hayes in my projection. I have him anywhere from 16 to 18 minutes. I think he can average 7 to 8 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He's going to be a high 3-point. He's going to be the best 3-point shooter. I think his ability to knock things down in transition threes and how well can he hold up defensively? If he can hold up defensively, he's going to be a second half guy, I think, for this team. He could be on the court. I think just Martini and Hayes, what they offer Rutgers as shooters on the wings, being able to space the floor, both of them in the corners with Dylan and Ace with the ball. And then for your fifth player, whether that's Acuff, whether that's Jaywell, Durkak, whoever it may be, if you have shooters on the floor and Martini and Hayes, that gives you size, that gives you shooters in the corners. With those guys, with the ball, you're going to be able to space the floor and really put pressure on defenses to sell out. And do they sell out on the drive? Do they sell out on keeping, 3-pointer shooters covered? You're going to make decisions for the opponent, and you're going to have an ability to come out plus whatever they decide. So I really think Hayes, super high on, had him on last week. He's going to be a big factor for this team. Again, can he hang defensively in Big Ten play? That's going to be a big question mark for this team. And then obviously just in terms of handling adversity, the outside distractions, this team's going to have a losing streak. How do they respond? The leadership appears to be strong. The buy-in from the older players appears to be strong. The younger guys have never really gone through. I mean, Ace and Dylan aren't used to losing. How are they going to respond? So there's a lot of questions there. Roles, buy-ins, it's easy now. Michael talked about they haven't been punched in the mouth yet, but, no one's playing for minutes yet. No one's scoring averages, all that. How well can this team stay together chemistry-wise if the ultimate goal is to win, which they're all saying the right things, and I really do believe it's sincere, then in theory, that should all take care of itself. And I think what this team could really be special is on nights where a Zach Martini hits a couple big threes down the stretch, where PJ Hayes hits a couple threes down the stretch, where Tyson Acuff makes a couple jumpers down the stretch, gets to the line, hits some free throws. Jordan Durkak ices a game from the line. That's where this team will really start to take off. When the role players make key moments and winning to win games. And it's not just Ace and Dylan taking the last shot of the game. It's these guys making big, impactful plays down the stretch of games. I think momentum is going to be huge this season. Staying ahead of the bubble. It's a grind. When you get caught in the bubble early, it's a grind all season. We saw it with the 2021 team with Ron and Gio, Caleb, Miles Johnson, Jacob Young. They had those 3 really bad non-conference games, and it took a historic winning streak, 4 games in a row against ranked opponents as an unranked team. Never happened before in college basketball. It took everything they had to get back off onto the right side of the bubble and squeak end to Dayton, and then they lost that epic overtime loss to Notre Dame. They didn't have enough at the end. Rebounding, of course, was a killer against Houston also the year before. But for, 2 high-profile younger players, If Rutgers can build some momentum early in the year, obviously those first 5 non-conference games, but Vegas, if they can go 2-1 in Vegas, if they could beat Seton Hall and Princeton, if you can win 9 or 10 non-conference games, you split your Big Ten. At worst case, you're 10-3 going into the 2025 year and resume Big Ten play. You're going to have an ability to stay ahead of the bubble. Now, if you have a bad non-conference loss, if you go 0-3 at Feast Week, they're going to have some real pressure on them early on. Doesn't mean it won't make them better. Doesn't mean they can't overcome it. But selfishly, we'd like to see them avoid that and really, stay top 25. Who cares? But in terms of positive momentum on this season, and learning lessons as you win games. Don't play your best, but you win them and you learn from that. That's huge. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I talked about in that 22-0 run, their ability to avoid droughts this year, their ability to produce kill shots. That's 10, at least 10 points in a row, holding your opponent scoreless. They're going to be able to do that. That's going to be a key ultimate factor for this team. Can they avoid 3-4 minute droughts from the field? Can they put that onto other teams? Can they go on a 12-0 run and just flip the game like that? I think this team has the ability to do that. We saw it against St. John's in that 22-0 run. Really something to watch out for. And at the end of the day, it's a wide open Big Ten. This conference is very unpredictable, and Rutgers has a real chance here. Overall, I think there's going to be, it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. You're going to have some disappointing games. I think Ace and Dillon, obviously, nights that they are at their best, Rutgers is going to be really hard to beat. Nights when they're not close to their best, depending on who Rutgers is playing, it could be a difficult night for them to win. However, the key is winning some games like that. And I think the confidence of this team, I think there's a real mental fortitude with this team, but the more they can build on their confidence and with that momentum I talked about, the better, and it really will help them fulfill their potential in March. Overall, predictions-wise, 9-2 in non-conference play, 12-8 in Big Ten play. I don't know where that's going to finish, standings-wise. It could be a huge mishmash in the middle there. But overall, 21-10 regular season. It's tempting. I mean, listen, I looked at the schedule. There's a scenario they could start 18-3. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. But I'm going to go with 9-2 in non-conference, 12-8 in the Big Ten, 21-10 overall. And then where that lands in the March Madness, I mean, that should be 21-10, 12-8, probably anywhere from a 6-9 seed, depending. And again, NCAA tournament, it's all about the draw. It's really not even about the seed. It's about the draw. Who will they match up with? Vegas is a perfect example. If you match up with Creighton, that's going to be a really hard matchup with Kalkbrenner. If they play an elite center, right, style is going to be so interesting in this season. How much can Rutgers learn to impose their will on opponents? That's going to be a key question. And that has to do with draw in the NCAA tournament as well. And learning to close out games when it matters most. Can they be a top 30 defense efficiency-wise and come up? Can they be a top 50 offense? I think they can. I think it leads to that regular season record. And then definitely a March Madness team. Can they win a game in the March Madness? I think that should be kind of the baseline expectation. That's what we all hope for. I know people are hoping more. I just think draw has so much to do with it. Momentum has so much to do with it. But I really believe this team is going to be a better team, a much better team in March than they are in November. I think they have the ability to click and really make a run in March. I think they could, with the right draw, make the Final Four. We have dreams. For me, I think anything, if they can make the Sweet 16, if it happens to be in the East Regional and it's at the Prudential Center in Newark and we're all heading up the turnstiles at the Rock to see them play a Sweet 16 game, anything on top of that would be gravy. I think you want them to win an NCAA tournament game. I think it's fair to say if they don't make the NCAA tournament, it would be a huge disappointment. If they don't win an NCAA tournament game, it's going to be a big disappointment. So, but the idea that this team is going to be, one of the best in the country right off the bat, I don't think that's true. But I think this team's just going to get better and better. And it's just such an exciting, I can't really express as a fan of 4 decades of this program what this means, what this is going to feel like. But I hope you look forward to going through the journey with me. It's an honor. And just to talk about this team, just to have seen this team as much as I have this preseason, It's just such an exciting season ahead, and I am optimistic. I think the floor for this team is very high, and the ceiling for this team could be very high too. Overall, this is going to be, I think, probably anywhere from 4th to 7th in the Big Ten. And I think in the Big Ten, you're going to have 10 teams make the NCAA tournament, and you could have the 7th team make a Final Four run. That's how wide open things are. So this is going to be a good team. Could they be a really, really good team? Remains to be seen, but a lot of reasons for optimism here. I hope you enjoyed this kind of deep dive, player projections, season predictions, thoughts, questions, whatever you want to label it. Thank you so much for watching and listening to all my coverage this preseason with Rutgers basketball. I'll have a game preview for Wagner coming out on Tuesday. Obviously, I'll have plenty of football coverage coming up now with Rutgers, Minnesota, Saturday at noon. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast.